Good evening. Welcome to Driver's Ed tonight. Hopefully everybody's having a great day. We are officially at the halfway point. After this evening, we are done. Half of our classroom portion of Driver's Ed, so congratulations. I'm still waiting for some homework from some people that viewed the video from last night. I think I've gotten about 4 or 5, so there's about 3 of you that still haven't handed in your homework. So I probably should wait before I actually start talking. Now we got 6 people. Everybody's pretty good for the most part. Okay, you remember, class is Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday for 5 weeks, so please try to be here. If you're not, please let me know why you are not. I have a sneaking suspicion we are going to have all 8 people tonight, since tonight is the midterm. I'll probably schedule, I think tomorrow is pretty much full for the most part. But please reach out to me. Let me know that you want to drive, you're available to drive. We'll try to get you in. Your schedule is very difficult. I know that you have school, you have other school activities, but I do not want to push this into November, December if I can avoid it. Because every 2 or 3 days I'm getting more people signed up for my next class. And dealing with 8, which is your class, compared to the new class, which is going to be probably close to 15 right now. So I'm almost maxed out at 17. And then I'm going to probably put a cap on it. But for the most part, please free up some time so we can drive. All right, let me get out of tonight's little intro. I like that music, just to get things warmed up and going. We finished up last night's class, and we just talked about it briefly, about the car crash that was speed related. And how unfortunate a get-together of a soccer team could lead to the death of 3 young soccer players, and the grieving parents and how they're trying to overcome it, and what's going to happen for the rest of the driver's life. I mean, notice that she did have to spend time in jail. She's got some probation. She's got money to restitution to pay for damages that happen. It's going to change the rest of her life. Not that she can't bounce back, but it certainly pushes her prospects of college and other things back a little bit, especially if she was a senior. I don't know if she was or not, but a year in jail does take away a year from your life. I did not get through the last bullet from the speed section, so I do want to kind of highlight that a little bit before we get into the topic for tonight, which is parking. I've done a few of my own videos with parking, so some of it tonight will be just PowerPoint notes. I haven't made videos for angle parking, backing into perpendicular parking spots, but I have done one for backing. I have done one for perpendicular, and I have done one for parallel. So we get to see those tonight. Where was I? Oh, speed. So let's get right to finishing up on speed. More than likely in your lifetime, you're going to get caught for speeding. Whether intentionally, where you're late for work, to school, or you just like going fast, you're probably going to get stopped. That's if we were to ask a police department, of all the tickets that citations that you write, what would be the number one cause for a pullover? I would say that speed would probably be number 1, and I'd say running stop signs would be number 2. And then maybe 3 would be going through. Oh, there might be an echo going because I switched over. Hopefully you don't have an echo. I just turned off. When I get dual mics going, sometimes there's an echo. Third thing would be running through what you think is a yellow light, which is actually a red light. But back to speeding. Okay, there is going to be a day when you get pulled over. So I've written down a few things that I want you to remember if you ever get pulled over by the police. So please write this down. All right. Number one, put your signal on and pull well off the road. Now, I want you to add a few things, and I probably should have added this to the first bullet. Pull well off the road and pull over to a place that is safe, not only for you, but for the police officer. There's nothing that's going to make a police officer a little bit aggravated when he walks to your vehicle if you didn't pull well off the edge of the road or into a safe area. So let's talk about where would be a good place to pull over. Okay, if there's a breakdown lane that can hold your whole vehicle, now I mean whole vehicle, that your vehicle is beyond the white edge line, that's okay. A driveway, a gas station, a rest area, a parking lot. Think about where you would want someone to talk to you and not be in harm's way. If you pull over and you look in your rearview mirror and your side view mirror and you think for yourself, if he gets out of the cruiser, he's going to be walking in traffic, then you probably didn't do a very good job. So remember, he's building a attitude towards you as he walks to your vehicle. So one, he's not too happy because you're going too fast. Two, is you pulled over in a place that's putting him and his police car at harm's way. So make sure that safety is something that you think about when you pull over. Now, a question, and you see this in different articles and videos about, could you drive to the police station? Absolutely. Okay, if you feel unsafe, that you're a female, or you don't know if it's really a police officer because it's an unmarked car, as long as you put your hazard lights on and drop your speed and stay off to the right side of the road, okay, so you just keep on driving, okay, until you feel that you're safe. And sometimes people will pull over to a place where there are other people. Everybody has a cell phone now, so if you get pulled over, I'd almost guarantee someone's pulling their phone out and videotaping what's going to happen. Okay, so if you don't feel safe, you probably shouldn't pull over. Stay calm, okay? Put your hands on the steering wheel, so make sure that they're visible. Nothing's going to make an officer feel a little bit uneasy if he sees you start, bending down, putting your hands underneath the seat like you're trying to either get something or to, throw away something, okay? They're going to be very suspicious. Always stay in the vehicle. Never, ever get out, all right? If he wants you to get out of the vehicle, he'll ask you. But if you get out of the vehicle as he approaches the car, I'll guarantee you're going to have his holster unlatched very quickly, and he's going to pull a gun on you. Okay, that's the way they've been trained. I mean, just by the way that we have all these issues now in the news about police brutality, is that police are so on edge that they're going over the top, doing things that they normally should not do on basic traffic stops. Okay, it could happen in New Hampshire. If you drive in another state, you've got to follow some of these things, or else you could be subjected to, a zealous police officer. So be extremely careful. Now, one of the things that they're going to ask you to do is to hand over your license and your registration. We talked about registration last night. Now, when you hand it over, only crack your window just far enough that you can hand out these documents. So I'm talking 2 to 3 inches. I mean, barely, so you can't get a hand in there. Just in case the officer is not an officer. Okay? You always have to be suspicious. There's nothing that says that you have to roll the window all the way down. Just that when he asks for something, that you've got to give it to him. All right? Now, a lot of times an officer is going to ask you, do you know why I pulled you over? And if we were in class, there's a little activity that we do. I give you a scenario about driving to school in the morning, and you're going too fast. You know you're going too fast. You're about 10 miles over the speed limit, and an officer pulls you over, and he asks you, do you know why I pulled you over? And I usually ask everybody, what are you going to give for an answer? Okay, how are you going to answer an officer when he asks you, do you know why I pulled you over? Are you going to tell him the truth or are you going to lie? Now, lying sounds pretty strong, but nobody likes to get in trouble. And this happens even in a family. When you want to get away with something, you always minimize the damage or the negativity of what has been done. It's human nature. Okay? So, officers have already been trained that most people are going to not be forthright. And if they do tell the officer why they think, they minimize, oh, was I going too fast? Was I going a little too fast? But you knew that you were going 10 or 15 miles over the speed limit. He's basically checking to see how you're going to respond to some of these questions. Let's make it real. Let's make it to what's going on right now. You're going to be getting your license within the next couple weeks to months. When he looks at your license, he knows that you're a youth operator's license, because we talked about this last night, states it right on your license. So he knows you've only had it for a couple weeks or a month. He's going to be shocked if you didn't learn in driver's ed what the speed limit in certain areas. We talked about it last night. We know that in a business urban area, it's 30 or less. We know in rural roads, it's 35, maybe up to 50. On interstates, minimum of 45, up to 65, 75, 70 miles per hour. He knows that you have learned by the area that you're driving in, you should be really relatively close to what the speed limit is. So he's just testing to see if you're going to be honest. You can tell him whatever you want when you get pulled over. But I always find honesty is the best policy. If you know that you were speeding, say, yeah, I was probably going too fast. I wasn't paying attention to my speedometer. If you start, and I'll tell you a quick story. There was a woman in Manchester that got pulled over, and she was driving too fast. The officer asked her these questions, and she said, my mind wasn't looking at the speedometer. I think she was going like 30 miles over the speed limit. She said, my dad is in the hospital. I just got a phone call. The doctors said that he doesn't have much time left, and my mind is just to get there. Officer understood. Okay, you're distracted. You weren't paying attention. This is a serious matter. Okay, just watch your speed. Slow down. I'm not going to hold you here any longer. Get to the hospital. I hope everything's okay with your dad. Later that day, the officer was at the hospital because there was a car crash, and he had to, check on the person. I think it might have been a drunk driver. So, of course, they're going to have to arrest that person or cite him for drinking and driving. And while he was at the hospital, he asked the hospital staff, how's so-and-so doing? He had the name of the father because he asked the woman, okay, who's your dad? Who you going to go see? There was nobody in the hospital with that name. She totally made up the lie that she was going to the hospital. Well, the officer had her name and her plate from the stop because he called it in. He followed it up and still gave her a ticket. Okay, this was like 5 years ago here in Manchester. So be honest. Be honest. Don't lie. Don't cry. Don't make excuses. Because, okay, write this down. The officer has 3 choices when he pulls you over. Okay, here are the 3 choices. 1, he can give you a verbal warning. You were going too fast. You're a new driver. I don't want this to be on your record because your parents are going to kill you probably if you go home with a speeding ticket. You should have known better to be going this fast. Slow down. I better not catch you again. Wow, you just got out of a ticket. You are so happy. Now, he also can do a written warning where he writes it up and he actually gives you, okay, it looks like a ticket. Okay? He says, I'm writing this down. I'm putting it into the record that I stopped you today on speed. Okay, this should not have happened. You don't have to pay a fine for a written warning. But it does go into the computer system for that local department that they pulled you over. So if another officer 2 weeks from now pulls you over, he's going to look when he pulls your license number and see that you had been stopped before. So a verbal warning, written warning, and then they can give you a ticket. Those are the three choices that he has. So when you're honest, when you pull over to a safe place, these are all things that are going to be in your best interest. So just wanted to point that out to you. And never bribe an officer, meaning, if I slip you a 20, is there a chance that you could just maybe walk back to the cruiser? That's bribing a police officer or intimidating a police officer. You could give me the ticket, but my dad knows the police chief. I know someone in the state police in Concord. He'll go into the computer system. He'll get me off on this. So go ahead, give it to me, but it's not going to mean anything. So don't be that way. They're there to do their job. Be polite, and hopefully you'll get away with just a verbal warning. All right. So that is speed. That's what I really wanted to cover from last night. Let's get into parking. There we go. Anytime that you are asked to do parking on a state test, I want you to write down in your notes is that they're looking for key components of and skill of how you're parking. There is no right or wrong way to get into a parking spot. So it's technique. So my technique that I'm teaching may be different than another instructor. It may be different than your parents. You find what works for you. But there are some things that they're going to be looking for, all right? So write this down. This is universal. Universal with any type of parking that someone does. Just like with baseball. There are certain rules that have to happen. Oh, I got the double mic on again. Hold on. All right, now I'm just back to my regular mic. Like in baseball, there are certain things that, are rules that you're always going to do. But when it comes to standing in the batter's box, so how you grab the bat and how you swing, that's totally up to you, okay? But you can't, run around the bases the wrong way. You can't choose which base you run to first. You've got to go first, second, third. So there are some basic principles to parking that's kind of like sports, okay? I like using that analogy with sports, with parking, because it really is practice to get better at it and to work on the technique. So as I was saying, okay, what would they be looking for on your driver's test? One, do you use a signal to indicate that you're parking? Absolutely must. Okay, write that down. Use your directional for parking. Two, that you're checking your mirrors before you park to see what's coming up behind you, just to make sure that there's not going to be an issue if you brake real hard before you park. How smoothly you pull into your parking spot. They're looking at your speed coming into the spot, and then finally, your placement. So as long as you're doing those things, okay, signal, making a check in your mirrors, going in or out of your parking spot, and then going at a relatively slow speed in your position, you're going to be okay. They're going to be somewhat picky, as I showed you on the chart this week. Needs improvement, it's not bad. Poor is going to be 10 points, and then there's going to be a spot for automatic failure. So what I've done is I've set up step-by-step reference points for parking successfully. So that's what we're going to take a look at. In the manual, it talks about three things. It talks about stopping, standing, and parking. I think we all know what parking means, and I think we know what stopping means with a vehicle that we're in drive or reverse, and we've used the brake pedal, and we've come to a complete stop. So we got that. And we get the parking thing. But when you see the word standing, that really throws people off. In your notes, what I want you to write down, no standing means you can stop to let people out of the vehicle or pick someone up who is already there. Okay, that would be what happens out in front of the school. Okay? But no waiting for someone. Okay, no waiting. This would be like in an airport or at a supermarket. And by the way, that's a fire lane in front of a supermarket, but no waiting for someone or loading or unloading. That's what standing is. When you think that you're just in gear, you got your foot on the brake, and you're just waiting and waiting and waiting. So stopping, you've stopped the car, they get in, they get out, you're gone. Remember, it's for people. Remember, it is as people only. That's the way you should remember it. So no stopping is the most restrictive. And you can't stop at the curb for any reason you can think of. So keep the roadways and highways open. Prevent blocking of areas to keep them clear. And remember, laws apply in all situations unless indicated by signs. Signs would be what color? Okay, if you said white, you would be correct. And usually it's going to be red lettering. Sometimes it's going to be green. White with green is guiding you to when parking is allowed, like for 2 hours between 8 and 5. I think I showed you a sign earlier. But if it's white with red, that means you can't be there. And by the way, having your vehicle towed is expensive. Now, this is a picture of Boston. And if you take a look at the article below, it says the fee to get your vehicle back is $131. Now, getting a parking slip like in Durham is going to cost you $1. Okay, you can use a credit card, debit card, pay with cash. It's not too expensive. So make sure if you're going into the city that you do have some money to pay for the parking meter. Now, if you're in the big city, you may have no place to park. You have to use a parking garage. Then it's really expensive, like $20, $30, $40. Like at a baseball game, could be up to $50. But still, it's less expensive and less time-consuming than getting your car back at a towing garage. And they tow your car to a garage and it's impounded. You can't get it. Now, in Durham, you can write this down. They put a device on your tire that's called a boot. A parking boot. A parking boot is something that they wrap around your vehicle and they lock it up. It prevents your tire from spinning and your car from moving. You will not get that boot removed until you pay the fee. And I've seen it in Durham, no lie. I've seen a person leave their vehicle, walk across the street where they shouldn't have crossed. You can only park in the parking lot in Durham at Marketplace if you go in some of those stores, like the drugstore, the supermarket, the bakery. But if you go to the UNH area across the street, like I've seen it within, no lie, within 5 to 10 minutes, the people already have a boot on their vehicle. There's a guy in a golf cart that goes around checking this stuff out. So keep the areas clear. This is a person that parked illegally in front of a fire hydrant, so that's illegal. So they'll just bust out the window. Okay, and by the way, you've got to pay for that. Here's cars that are parked a little bit close. So people say, how close should you be from another vehicle? Well, you should never hit it. But you also want to make sure that you can also open up your door. Now, I will tell you, this used to be a video that I used, but I can't find it right now. But the people know each other. So they did this on purpose because they're trying to squeeze in more people. But in the video, they show you there's really only 3 inches separating those vehicles. Like one of the side mirrors are already, pushed in so they don't kind of collide with one another. Key points to parking. Okay, I want you to write this down. Move as far away from traffic as possible. You should be about a foot away from the curb. Okay, a foot or less to the curb is what you're aiming for. So when you pull over the side of the road, get super close to the curb. Avoid traffic when you open up your door. So look in your mirrors, rear view, side view, look over your shoulder, then open the door. Secure the vehicle, putting it in park. Lock the vehicle so it can't move, and maybe even set the parking brake, depending on what type of situation you're in. If you're going up or down a hill, parking brake is always recommended. On level ground, it really isn't necessary, but if you think the car may roll, especially if you're in a manual transmission, you probably should set the parking brake. Now, some parents probably make you do the parking brake all the time. That's fine, but I just don't use it because I don't want to stretch out my cable, because I've got like 6 or 7 or 8 of you driving every day, so that cable is getting a workout. If you don't park close to the curb, you could get a ticket, even though you parked close enough to the curb. Here's an article or an editorial response to someone that got a ticket in Dover for being 18 inches away from the curb. He actually paid for his parking spot, so legally he paid. He could be there, but he was too far away. So his car was actually kind of on the line or over the white edge line into traffic, and they still gave him a ticket. So just be aware of that. Parking to the side of the road. You must be off the paved or main travel portion of the road, or you'll be towed. This will be a question, I believe, not on the midterm, but on the final. So write this down. You have to be seen for a distance of 200 feet in both directions. Because people coming around a corner over a hill, they're not expecting a car to be somewhat out in the roadway. So 200 feet. So look in front of you, look behind you. If you can see 200 feet, then you're going to be okay where you're probably parked. So try not to stop on a hill, curve, or a highway. So look for a better place, a safe place to park your car. Everyone here should know the difference between parking lights and emergency lights. Okay? The difference is your emergency lights are your parking lights. They're the same light. So how are they different, or why are we using different terms? Okay, here's the explanation. Parking lights, okay, are yellow lights, which are really super close to your headlights and your backup lights. They're to be used when you pull over the side of the road to maybe check an address, check a message, because you're not supposed to be texting and checking your phone while you're moving. So pull over the side of the road, put your parking lights on. So you're basically in your vehicle with the car still on. So it's movable. Use your parking lights. When you hit your hazard lights, which is your emergency lights, it's one and the same, just different terminology. You make your parking lights blink. So your parking lights become your emergency lights, your hazard lights. If someone is off to the side of the road, write this down, with emergency lights on, police officers have been trained to pull over to find out what the situation is. It means you need help. Hazard lights, emergency lights means you need assistance. So whether it be a police officer, I even know some people that just want to be helpful. And they see the lights flashing, they pull right up behind you. Is everything okay? Do you have a flat tire? Are you overheating? Run out of gas? What's going on? Someone's trying to help you out. So if you don't want people to pull over to see what's going on, use your parking lights. If you put your emergency lights on, people are going to come up behind you. We'll talk more about that. Just make sure if you leave your vehicle that it can be seen. Leave a note on the windshield indicating the problem that you think that you have and when you're going to come back. So leave your phone number. Remember, they're going to tow your vehicle if you leave it there for more than 24 hours. So if you run out of gas or have a flat tire, you got 24 hours to get it off the road. Now, I don't think the new manual here has the phone number. This used to be in the manual. I'd have to go back and check because I really didn't see it when I went through it real quick. Maybe someone here can tell me if they gave you this 1-800 number in the new manual, if you came across it. But let police know why the car is off to the side of the road. I ran out of gas. Someone picked me up. I've got a meeting. After I'm done the meeting, I'm going to be back in 2 or 3 hours. That's exactly what they want to hear. Parking not allowed. These are all situations that are from the manual that I call them common sense situations. Parking next to another vehicle, we call that double park. Now, the only people that can do this, and this happens a lot in Durham, so make sure you write this down. It is legal for the UPS or FedEx guy to be out in your lane making a delivery. It is legal for them to do that, but they can only do that for a very short period of time. I'm not exactly sure. I believe it's like a maximum of like 5 to 10 minutes. That's why they're rushing to get in and get out. But they can park right next to a parked car. That is legal. On a sidewalk, in an intersection, on a crosswalk, on a bridge, in a highway tunnel, blocks traffic or is a hazard to others on the road, on any street where there's not enough clearance for other vehicles to pass in front of a driveway. Okay, pretty simple. I think if you had multiple choice, you could probably figure out which one of these don't belong. Okay? But then it gets a little bit more complicated. These are the ones you're going to have to write down, maybe make cue cards and just kind of study it. So 15 feet of a fire hydrant. And I think I told you that When it comes to fire, anything that has fire as a question and it's footage, there's going to be 5 in the answer. So within 15 feet of a fire hydrant, 20 feet of a crosswalk, 30 feet of a stop sign, yield sign, or traffic control, because you've got to have a wide angle for your vision. When your peripheral vision is cut down, what you can see from side to side makes driving very complicated. So parked cars will create problems for you. 20 feet of a fire station entrance and 75 on the opposite side. It's because the trucks, when they leave the fire station, they go out wide. So 20 feet on the same side, 75 on the opposite, and 50 feet from the nearest rail, the railroad crossing. So there's 5 situations where numbers are going to have to be remembered. Handicap parking, we know that is a blue sign indicated by a symbol of a wheelchair. If you are parked in one of these areas, the fine's going to be at least $250. I will not test you on money. There's only one money question I will, but we haven't gotten to it yet. But anything with money, fines, I won't test you. And I don't think the state does either. Those access aisles, that's where wheelchairs have to go up on ramps. So those are those crosshatch areas. They're usually white or yellow, striped near the handicap spots. If you're in those, first fine, 50, second, 100, subsequent would be 250. So it does get quite expensive. Be sensitive, even though you're just running in for a pizza, and that's the closest to the door of the pizza place. Park 50 feet away and walk. Okay, there could be somebody that really needs that spot. You don't know when someone's going to pull into the parking lot. What can you do if someone takes a handicap spot and you're really upset about it? Well, you could take a picture of it, send the picture to the police station, and give a statement of what you saw. So make sure you take a picture so they can see the license plate, because then they'll be able to get the registration address. Call the police. If they're in the area and the car's still, there, they're going to write them out a ticket. I know a lot of people won't do that because it's like, I don't want to be the bad guy. Well, how about the handicapped person that's got a heart condition? You're a bad guy by making them walk now. So, do what you think is right. That's what I got to say. Okay, let's talk about backing up. And usually your second or third time out driving with me, I will take you to an area. I've been using Jackson's Landing for a bit. And I tell you that we're going to treat this like a driveway. And what I'm looking for, and what the state would be looking for, is when you put the car in reverse, do you know how to put your car out into the roadway in its particular lane? Are you in the right lane or the left lane? Most people get very sloppy backing out into a roadway. They don't stop at the edge. They don't check for traffic. They don't use their turn signal when they're backing. On your driver's test, be very specific on what you're doing. Make sure that you show them that you understand a sequence of what should be happening. So let's break this down. Okay? The first thing, put your car into an opening so you can back out successfully. Don't get too close. Put it in the middle of your driveway. Never park to the right or to the left of your driveway. You want to be smack dab in the middle. When you go for your driving test, when they say back to the left, they're talking about which way your back end is going. Don't think about where your front end is going. Some of you get that confused. Others of you get directionals when backing mixed up. You don't know your left from your right. All right? So I would recommend using your directional. That's going to reinforce which way you're turning the wheel. Now, when you back up, you can use your mirrors, you can look over your shoulder, and I should add to this now because this was told to me by someone at the DMV. They do allow you to use your backup camera, but not exclusively. So make sure you write down, I can use my camera, but I can't stare at it and only use my camera. I've got to look in my rear view mirror, look in my side view mirror, look over my shoulder. Use everything that's available to you to get out of your driveway. But also, and I've got this in bold letters now, stop at the end. Always check before going out into traffic. And then try to end in the correct lane. If you haven't done this with me, let me show you. Those of you that have done it, you can bear with me. You know what we're doing here. But here I did a video for backing. So this is what backing would look like. Okay, so when you have two cars in the driveway, I had to park over to the left. So normally I'd go right in the middle. But notice you're always going to stop at the edge. So there's the hesitation, there's the turning the wheel, and you ended the correct lane. So that car is perfectly positioned in the right lane. Now to do it to the left, you're still going to stop at the edge. Stop at the edge, check for traffic in both directions, and then end over in the left lane. Okay, this is what it looks like when someone is in a hurry and they do it wrong. Okay, notice there's no stopping at the end of the driveway. They end in between both lanes crooked, and then they straighten out. I would say that most people probably do it that way. I would not do it that way on a driver's test. So once again, signal, stop at the bottom, check both ways, end in your lane, and practice, practice, practice. Doing it to the left, same thing. Go down to the edge, check, and end. So that's backing. Angle parking is the easiest parking that there is, and I haven't done a video for this one yet, so I do want you to write this down. It's usually found in downtown areas or fast food restaurants where you're trying to get traffic to go all in one direction. Okay, look at the arrows. Everything is branching off at a 45-degree angle. Okay, you will always have traffic coming at you from one direction. Now, you can park in either direction, left or right, with ease, so it's not like they're setting you up on your driver's test. Oh, they gave me the hard side. There really isn't one, okay? So when you do approach your parking spot, you want to be in the middle or slightly opposite in the direction that you're going to be parking. What you're looking for is a wider angle to make your parking maneuver. So the more distance and time that you have, the easier it's going to be. So a lot of people say, well, when I angle park, I'm in the middle or slightly opposite where I want to park. When do I turn the steering wheel? So this is what I want you to write down. This is, I'm going to put a star right next to it. This is what's going to make it happen. Turn when your side mirror is even with the first line of your parking spot. So your mirror, when you start driving, you're going to look off to the left or look off to the right. And just as the side mirrors on either side is even with that first line of your parking spot, or when you can see your whole parking spot, if it's between two parked cars, that is the time to start turning your wheel. Once you're halfway in, straighten your wheels and think about what your position looks like. Do I need to go closer left? Do I need to go closer right? Make minor adjustments when you still got 3 or 4 feet left, and that will make a perfect parking spot. So angle parking is really not that complicated. Now, backing up, go out halfway, check traffic, and then turn your wheels when you know your front bumper is going to miss what's parked to the opposite side of your backing maneuver. So if you're parking to the left with angle parking, when you get halfway out, you've got to look at that front right bumper, because when you start turning the wheel to the left, the back to the left, that front bumper is going to swing out to the right towards that parked car that's right next to you to the right. Now, with a lot of you that have done angle parking with me, you know we do use vehicles, but a lot of times I'll have you do it with no cars around. It is usually more difficult with no cars around because it's hard to find what your position is. It's very difficult, okay, it's very difficult to fix your parking spot when you have no distance left in your parking spot. So when you've got a couple feet left, that's when you want to make changes. So think about what are the changes that I need to make and then deal with it that way. Perpendicular, I'm not going to go over this part right here because I did a pretty lengthy video, which is a little bit longer than the backing one. So I'm going to put on the perpendicular one, and you're just going to have to take notes during the video.
One of the problems with perpendicular parking, it's the approach. Most people don't understand, or they forget, that it's two-way traffic. So you should always be in the correct lane as you approach. If you try to cheat to go into a parking spot early, you're bound to cut off your lines and your angles. When parking to the left, you should be as far as you possibly can at the end of the painted lines of the parking spots that are next to you. You should look out your side window. You should line up your shoulder with one of the parking lines. If you take a look out the window from the driver's seat, your shoulder will be lined up with a parking line prior to the parking spot that you're going to be taking. The front bumper is now even with the first line of the parking spot you'll be parking in. Put on your signal, lightly let go of the brake, and gradually turn the wheel to the left. You still should be able to see the left parking light underneath your side mirror as you start to approach into your parking spot. Once you are straight, straighten up your wheel and go to the end of your parking spot. As you approach into your parking spot, use the lines of the parking spot in front of you to help center yourself in your parking spot, making sure that you do not go through the end line into the parking spot in front of you. Here's a car that is going in the middle of the traveling lane, starting to turn the wheel before the front bumper gets to the first line. So you're coming at an angle. You're probably cutting off a little bit of the left line, and you're turning extremely sharp to get into your parking spot. Now you're in your parking spot, you're parallel to your lines, but if there were parked cars, you would have a problem. Now we're approaching the same parking spot, but we're going beyond the shoulder line, beyond the bumper with the first line. Now we're going to go far over into the right side of a parking spot, backing into the left spot, and now you're in your parking spot. Very close to the right side of the line of your parking spot. Plenty of room off to the left. It doesn't look that bad from the outside, but if there was a car to the right of us, we would have hit it. So let's just kind of go back and do each of those maneuvers and set up cones with a piece of wood and see if we would have hit cars. Okay, what we've done is we've set up some safety cones with a thin piece of wood to simulate where a side of a vehicle would be. We're basically about a foot off the line on either side. One of the problems with a vehicle, it does give you a reference as you pull in. Now we're going to lose these cones as we go into our parking spot, and that's very common for a new driver. They lose sight of what is to the left or the right of the vehicle because they're focused so much onto the front part of the car. So let's get in the car and take a look at not having good angles coming into your parking spot. I'm approaching from the middle of the traveling lane. I'm going to start my turn a little bit early. This is a common problem for most people. They try to get in at the very top of the white line, and then they find that they're going to hit the car to the right, so they turn real sharp to the left. Now you notice that we didn't hit the cones, but we are on the line to the left of our parking spot. Never want to hit a car again. This time we're going to go a little bit beyond the shoulder line, the bumper with the first line of your parking spot. So this is going to be a late turn into a parking spot. So here we are turning very, very lately. As you see, hitting the cone, hitting the wood. It would have been a car. If you have a new driver, you don't have a safety brake where you could stop the car. You've just had your first crash. Let's talk about one of the most difficult things of perpendicular parking. Maybe not so much getting in, but a lot of people forget that they've got to get out of their parking spot. And a lot of times when you're going to be backing to the right, now you can back to the left or to the right out of a perpendicular parking spot, but here's a person that only looks to the right, doesn't look to the left, and starts turning the wheel way too early. Notice, hits the piece of wood. That would be scraping up on the side of a car. You now have another crash because you don't focus your attention to the front of the vehicle. Let's go back in and do it the right way. Okay, let's talk about how to get out of a parking spot correctly and safely. You have a choice. You can back to the left or you could back to the right out of a perpendicular parking spot, so it doesn't matter which way that you go. I prefer always backing to the left because it's going to be a wider turn. It's not going to be quite as sharp as the one to the right. But the most important thing to remember about backing out of a perpendicular parking spot is to have your rear view mirror and your side view mirrors adjusted, because even though you're focusing your attention to the right or to the left, what could be coming down the traveling lane, you got to remember there are parked cars behind you in a busy parking lot. And if they're backing out at the same time that you're backing out, and they're not looking at you and you're not looking at them, you are now on a crash course and you're going to hit each other. So my recommendation for backing out of any parking spot is to go out left, right check, go out 6 inches, stop, look again, go out a little bit further, check, check. When you see that no one's coming and you're halfway out would bring your body to the end of the painted parking lines on either side. No one's backing out of a parking spot. No traffic is coming down in either direction. You now can perform your maneuver to the left. So we're going to turn sharp to the left, and that is going to bring us way over onto the left side of the parking lot. Then we can straighten up. You may not be able to get fully straight, but at least you're not going to be hitting a car backing out of a parking spot. Let's take a look at what it would look like if you were to back out from the right. So let's go back into the parking spot. We line up our shoulder with the line prior to the parking spot that we want. We check our rear view mirror, no traffic's coming towards us. We start our turn, we do hand over hand for a quicker, smoother turn. We're coming into our parking spot, we're almost completely straight. We use the lines in front of us. We straighten up our wheel. We go the rest of the way in, trying to get equal space on both sides. So let's back to the right. So putting on your signal, looking both directions, going out 6 inches or so, checking, going out a little bit further, because if there was a car coming, they'd see your backup lights and they would stop to let you out. Now we're at the very end of the painted lines to the right and to the left of us. We are now going to gradually turn to the right till we cleared the car to the left, and now we turn the rest of the way. But notice you're not going to be able to get straight because you have to back out halfway. This is when you put it in drive, you straighten up your car, and you get over into the correct side of your traveling lane. Now for the most difficult way to perpendicular park is to the right. The reason being is traffic is supposed to stay over to the right. But in order to get into that parking spot between the cones, I have to bring my vehicle all the way over as far as I can to the end of the painted lines to the left of me. I am still going to line up my shoulder with the line of the parking spot prior to the parking spot that I want. I put on my signal, and now I start my turn. Hand over hand. Notice I'm not going to hit the cone to the left, which is very common. I wait till I'm straight, and I straighten up my wheel. I approach my parking spot to the furthest point to the left. I line up my shoulder with the line prior to my parking spot. I hesitate. I let go of the brake. I go hand over hand. Watch that I don't hit the cone with the wood. That would be a car. I straighten up my wheel. And now I'm perfectly centered in my parking spot. I approach my parking spot as far to the left as I possibly can without getting too close to the cars that are to the left of me. I line up my shoulder with a line prior to the spot that I want. I hesitate for a moment. I let go of the brake. I go hand over hand. Notice the left corner is not getting too close to the cones in the board where there would be a car. I wait till I'm straightened up. And now I'm centered in my parking spot, making sure that I don't go too deep. Okay, now we're going to back out of the parking spot. Most people that park to the right will have a tendency to want to back out to the right. So what they normally don't do is they don't use your signal. You got to remember, when you use the signal coming out of a parking spot, it gets people attention. A lot of people say, why do I have to use my directional with backing out of a parking spot? There is no guessing which way the car is going. They see the backup lights, they see the directional, it gets their attention. You don't want people to be backing up the same time that you are. You don't want people going around your vehicle while you're trying to get out. So you look over your right shoulder if you're backing to the right, you look both ways, you go out about 6 inches. You want people to see your backup lights, your directional. If no one's coming by and you can't see, you're going to go out a little bit further. When you're about halfway out, you're going to start to slowly turn to the right. Notice we're no longer going to hit that piece of wood. Now we're going to be a little bit crooked, but what we do is we stop, we straighten up our wheel, and we pull over to the correct side of the road if more traffic is going to be coming down the parking spot. Okay, cones are much cheaper than cars. These are
So that's basically a good rundown of what perpendicular parking is. It's probably the most common type of parking that you'll find. So that's why I spent a little bit of extra time working on it. You're more apt to be asked to do that on your state exam than to do probably parallel parking. Or you may be asked to back into a perpendicular parking spot. And I haven't been able to do a video of that quite yet. But I hope to do that soon. So let's kind of go through the different points of backing into a perpendicular parking spot. We're going to do parallel parking at the very end. So we'll go back through that. Okay, so we call it pull pass and back into a perpendicular parking spot. So what I want you to write down in your notes is find a perpendicular parking spot that you want to back into. Be about 3 to 4 feet away from the end line of your parking spot. And the key to this is to go up 3 lines from the spot that you're going to be backing into. What you want to do is to turn your side view mirror to the right and tip it down. And you want to, I think I went too far on this. Okay. So here it says approach from 5 feet away. That's usually a little bit too far away. 3 to 4 is a little bit better. Go up to 3 parking spots. Put your right turn signal on and put your side mirror to the right down. Now you're going to back up probably about 10 inches to a foot, which is going to put your back bumper just before the first line of your parking spot. That's when you're going to be making a sharp turn to the right. So approach 3 to 4 feet away from the parking spot. Go up 3 lines from the spot that you want. Set your right mirror tip down. Use your right directional. And then back up slightly, about a foot to 10 inches, so your back bumper is just before that line of your parking spot. Turn your wheels extremely sharp. I mean, as far as they will go. And then use that side mirror to the right to get parallel with the white line on the right side of your vehicle. Now, you can use the backup camera. If the lines in front of you match up, you can use those lines. And then when you're halfway in, straighten up your wheel and back the rest of the way in. So backing into a perpendicular parking spot, whether you do it to the right or to the left, everything stays the same, except your starting position. You're still lining up 3 lines up, going back about a foot from that 3rd line, turning your wheel, whether it be right or left, and then watching your mirror's backup camera as you go into your parking space. They may ask you to do that on a state driving test. And then the one thing that they probably won't have you do, although I'm going to teach you, everybody's afraid of it, is parallel parking. Let me show you someone that's not very good at it first. Let me show you this. Now, she started way too far back from the blue car, and she isn't using her mirror. She doesn't even realize there are people in the pickup truck. That's a blue pickup truck.
Is she serious? She's giving up.
I hope she's trying to turn around now.
No, she's not.
No, she's gonna hit the truck. Yep, she hit us.
See, she just hit him. You should never back into another vehicle. This is where your backup camera and your side mirrors are going to come into play. This should never, ever happen. Now she's telling traffic to go by her.
She hit us.
Now, you would think that after doing something like this, she'd be so embarrassed she would drive away. She's going to do it. She's going to back up again. And she's going to back right up into his grill again. No remorse. No, I'm sorry.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Now he's going to get out of the truck. Okay, hopefully it's not going to be a road rage thing. See, look at. Now that's not serious damage, but that should never happen. You can see there's not really any damage to the vehicle. There may be some scratches. But that's just someone that just doesn't know how to parallel park. See, that should never happen. So let's talk about parallel parking. Okay, you want to stop before your empty parking spot. So if you do have traffic behind you, that they're not going to follow you up to the first part of that empty parking spot. So make sure you stop before your parking spot, put your right signal on, and then pull up side by side with the vehicle that's in front of your parking spot. You want to be roughly 1.5 feet, 2 feet away, and kind of go side mirror to side mirror. Okay? And basically, when your back bumper is even, all right, then you're going to turn sharp to the right. So it's really side mirror to side mirror. What you're trying to do is create a 45-degree angle. Once you've got that 45-degree angle, you're going to straighten your wheels and back up straight till you're about 1 foot away from the curb. Once again, using your backup camera or side mirror to see how deep you're getting into the parking spot. Once you're 1 foot away from the curb, then you're going to turn your wheel sharp to the left. Okay, and then back up until you're parallel with the curb. And you're monitoring everything at a very slow speed. Do not try to rush. Even if there's traffic, you do not want to rush. Okay, let me show you the video that I did for parallel parking. It kind of breaks down what I just went over, but now we're going to be able to visualize. Let's take a look today at one of the hardest driving maneuvers, parallel parking. And this is, by the way, this is where I'm going to take you for parallel parking. So there was nobody behind me, so I'd never stop. So the approach is be about 1.5 feet, 2 feet away. Kind of go side mirror, bumper to bumper. Use your right turn signal to indicate you're backing into the parking spot. And tipping the mirror down. So now I can see the back corner of my parking space. So now I'm going to turn the wheels all the way to the right. And I'm going to watch the side of my car go to the back corner. Okay? The back corner, the back line disappears. It's a 45-degree angle. And once that line's disappeared, I've straightened my wheel. So right about here, I'm going to straighten my wheel. See, I'm going to the back corner. Once I'm about 1 foot away from the curb, I turn all the way to the left. There's the 45 degree. Go straight to the back corner. Always watching in your mirrors. Now you could go back and forth to get a better position. Should have equal. Now to get out of your parking spot, you check your mirrors. Check over your shoulder. Signal left to let people know you're leaving. And basically that's parallel parking. It really isn't that complicated. 3 easy steps to parallel parking. Right, straight, and left. What's so hard about parallel parking? With a little bit of practice, anybody can do it. So basically those are the different driving skills that they could ask you to do on your test. There is one other way that you can back into a perpendicular parking spot. You can do it at a 45-degree angle. I don't normally teach that. I have done it with some people that said that they have vans and trucks at home. So a larger vehicle, I can help you with backing into a parking space at a different angle. But that is basically the only thing that they could throw at you on your driving test is everything that we just talked about tonight. So that's parking in a nutshell. Like I said, the way that I teach it could be different than your parents, could be different than you read in another textbook. So take everything with a grain of salt. I am not the supreme, being with steps of how to park. I just find it easy to do it this way. If you can do it your way better or more consistently, more power to you. I'm not going to try to change you. So a lot of times I'll ask you to park, and if you do it on your own, I'm going to leave it alone. As long as you're consistent and safe, good spacing, I'm okay with it. So that's it. Now, for tomorrow's class, we're going to skip driving emergencies. We're going to add that to the section on highway driving next week. I want to get into driving in bad weather, so hazardous driving conditions. So we're going to go over that tomorrow. That's going to be tomorrow's class. But for the rest of tonight will be your midterm. We are at 8:30, so you're going to have about an hour to do it. It shouldn't take you that long. I do want you to take your time. So I am going to put a password on the screen. I'm going to type it in, all right? So this is your password to get in. I will send out the link to people. There it is. That is the password tonight for your midterm. Okay, it's not our normal password when you do your review questions with me. I switched it up. It's also on Facebook, on our remote Facebook page. If you need a link, I will have to send it to you via text message. But that is it for tonight. The rest of your time will be the midterm. So I will send a link out to a few of you in just a moment that don't have Facebook. So that's it. Any questions, just text me on your phone. All right? Good luck. Okay? Take your time. Don't rush. A lot of it's on signs, so it shouldn't be too difficult. All right? We'll see you tomorrow. And remember your drive times, people that have signed up. I got some people driving tomorrow, so we'll see you tomorrow. All right? Good night. Good luck.